If you're one of those people that grew up small, quite skinny and weak like me, you've probably always been referred to as a small or skinny guy, and you see yourself as that person too. You've constantly tried to gain weight, pack on muscle, and just look and feel bigger. But now as you get older, possibly like mid-20s or above, you start to get a little bit of a belly, but you still have skinny arms, skinny legs. It's a very confusing place to be. When you look at other muscular guys online, you think, I really need to put on more muscle, more size, I need to get bigger. But now you got a belly at the same time, where do you actually begin? I was in this exact same camp from my mid-20s to my late 20s, and I genuinely didn't know how to change my mindset around how to build the physique I actually wanted. All of the things that I was taught and I was doing from so-called PTs from when I was 16, 17, 18 did not apply to me when I was over 25 and the South Asian genetics were catching up with me and I was getting a belly, plus my arms and legs were still skinny. You probably have this mentality that you need to eat big to get big. And that mentality has stayed with you from when you were 16, 17, 18 and first started training. The advice I used to get from so-called PTs back in the day were to eat 6 cheeseburgers, to eat as much as possible right before bedtime. And as long as I was training my midsection, I'd be absolutely fine. Surprise, surprise, none of those approaches actually work. If you find yourself in what we call this skinny fat situation, in this video, I'm going to explain exactly how you build a lean and athletic physique and advise you on exactly what you should do based on your specific starting point. Should you bulk or should you cut? My name's Ash, I'm a PT and online coach, and I've been specializing in South Asian body transformations for the past 5 years. I've done thousands of hours of in-person PT, and I understand firsthand the challenges we face as South Asians in building lean and athletic physiques. I've helped multiple people drop belly fat and build physiques they are proud of, and I'm on a mission to help as many South Asians as possible do this for themselves and create above average bodies that they can be proud of going forward. If you'd like to work with me directly, you can hit the link in my description so we can have a discussion about your goals and whether we think you'd be a good fit for the A team. Now, to begin with, most generic fitness advice skips this completely. As a South Asian, your genetics means naturally you have lower lean muscle mass and higher body fat, even at lower body weight. It really comes down to body composition. So how much muscle mass you have versus how much body fat you have. And we are predisposed to having lower levels of muscle mass and higher levels of body fat. From a health point of view, that comes with its own metabolic issues, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. That's not necessarily the topic of this video, but the genetics is something that we really need to understand in order to make sure we're making the right decisions going forward with our actual physiques and building both a healthy and aesthetic looking physique. Now, the conventional muscle building or bulking advice is for people that are already lean physique and building good quality muscle tissue off that frame. Most South Asians, mid-20s and above, do not have a lean frame. You were likely once very skinny growing up, but as you've gotten older, that body fat distribution starts to pile up, especially around the midsection. Now, if you find yourself having fat around the midsection, but you still have skinny legs and skinny arms, we call this the skinny fat body type. So if you're already carrying belly fat as a South Asian, it's not wise to try to put yourself through a calorie surplus and start the bulking process. You're just gonna end up putting on more fat. Now, there is a case for what we call the lean muscle building phase, which I will discuss later on in this video. But the general concept of bulking, or what some may refer to as the dirty bulking, is definitely not a good option for the South Asian body type. Especially with genetic traits such as insulin resistance, you're going to end up putting on more body fat and therefore getting further and further away from your actual goal of building a good quality physique. So if you find yourself in this situation, what's the ideal approach for you to take to actually build the physique that you want? Now, we have to understand what we actually are trying to achieve. What we are trying to achieve with body transformation is improving muscle mass and reducing body fat at the same time. That is what creates a lean and athletic physique. The other consideration to have is your expectations. As someone that's going down this route naturally, what can you actually achieve? Unfortunately, if you do have slightly inferior genetics, you're gonna have a ceiling on what you can actually achieve naturally. You're not gonna be the biggest guy in the room. You're essentially not gonna look like a bodybuilder. So the lean and athletic body is something that is definitely achievable with the South Asian genetic type. A phrase that we refer to as body recomposition, which is doing the fat loss process and the muscle building process simultaneously. Now, this can work for our genetic body type. And this is a preferred route to take. If your starting point is the skinny fat body, you want to go through what we call a body recomposition phase. This means putting yourself through a calorie deficit, but also focusing massively on muscle building basics at the same time. Now, if you're a complete beginner, you're gonna reap some amazing rewards from this, because if your body has never been through any kind of stimulus or weight training, it's going to adapt very, very quickly. For someone that's been training for a while, it may be slightly slower. However, what I find with most people that work in the A team is that, yes, they may say they've been training for 3, 4, 5 years. They actually haven't really been training effectively at all for those 3, 4, 5 years. Therefore, by following an actual program with the right level of intensity and with progressive overload on a weekly basis, they find that they almost get what we call those newbie results anyway. The body recomposition blueprint is as follows. You want to lift a minimum of 3 times per week. Most people in this day and age with busy careers, families, do not have more than 3 sessions a week they can allocate to their fitness. 3 sessions a week is absolutely fine for building muscle. They just need to be programmed effectively, which would be a 3-day full body program with the right level of intensity and progressive overload. If you want the details of actually how to train effectively, you can catch this other video that I created specifically on training principles for the South Asian body type. Whilst focusing on basic muscle building properties, you also want to put yourself through a calorie deficit, so we're actually dropping body fat. We have body fat even at low body weights. So the skinny fat body type is we are trying to reduce that body fat in this process. When you start to reduce that body fat and build the muscle at the same time, you're doing what we call a body recomposition, which is the blueprint to fixing the skinny fat build. You should aim to get stronger in this phase as well. The aim of the body recomposition phase is to try to get you to 15% body fat or lower. Now, understanding your body fat percentage is a very difficult thing to do, but essentially what is the goal here? The goal is aesthetics. So my suggestion is to go off how you feel and look in the mirror. It's not an exact science unless you're using something like a DEXA scan, which most people are not going to actively do. So I would always go off a waist measurement and how visible your abs are at that specific time. Now, if you want to know how to build visible abs effectively as a South Asian, I've got another video on that, which you can check out on my YouTube as well. Now, a very interesting point to make is that the belly is probably going to be the last place that the body fat comes off from, unfortunately, as a South Asian body type. The insulin resistance that we are genetically predisposed to means that we hold on to body fat more easily, especially around the abdomen. So the key in your body recomposition phase is to keep going until you get that stomach flat, or at least till you get some visible abs. This can be quite common to be lower than that 15% body fat region, but it's important to keep going to try to reduce as much body fat as possible in this phase of the process. If you're training hard and with intensity at the same time, then you're gonna build muscle simultaneously and your body's just gonna take a completely new shape, which is ultimately what we're trying to achieve here. From a health and from an aesthetic point of view, reducing the refined carbs are going to be so important for you to get that last bit of belly fat down as well. This is going to require you to have a lot of self-discipline, being quite restricted with your refined carbs, which is things like donuts, cakes, chocolate, sweets. You want to be choosing carbs that are whole food, single ingredient sources, and you want to be timing your carbs in and around your training window so you're actually fueling up for performance. One of the most important aspects to consider in this process is also when you get down towards that flat stomach and possibly those visible abs, is how much muscle mass you actually have. Now, unfortunately, by doing just one body recomposition phase, you'll probably find that you don't have as much muscle mass as you want. The good news is you don't have to stop there. The next phase of that process, by reducing that belly fat down and doing the body recomposition phase, means that you can go directly into what I would suggest and what I would call a lean muscle building phase. Not that dirty bulk that I spoke about earlier in the video. That is not going to be conducive for the aesthetics or the health of the South Asian individual. Now, a lean muscle building phase is trying to gain lean, good quality muscle tissue as opposed to just chasing scale weight alone. That means a very well thought out training program with progressive overload with the right level of intensity, the right amount of calories just above your maintenance, 250 calories above your maintenance. So you're in a slight surplus, you're fueling up for performance. So you're using the right sources of carbohydrates, the right amount of carbohydrates. You're training with the right level of intensity to give you the best opportunity of building lean, good quality muscle tissue rather than lots of excess body fat, which is going to take you again further and further away from your goal. By doing one good quality lean muscle building phase, which will come with this body fat as well, followed by a fat loss process, a very similar approach with the calorie deficit and trying to preserve and build muscle at the same time through the body recomposition process, that will take your body and your physique to the absolute next best level naturally. So in a nutshell, if you are a skinny fat South Asian, you should ideally start with what we call a body recomposition process, which is fat loss and muscle build at the same time. You want to focus on starting off with a calorie deficit, but driving intensity of your training really, really hard to make sure that you're building muscle at the same time. Once that phase is complete, when you are happy with your physique, you've got a flat stomach and possibly some visible abs, you can then move into what we call a lean muscle building phase, which is not a reckless dirty bulk, but something that's well calculated and well structured for a defined period of time, and then followed by a fat loss process again. This approach will fix the skinny fat South Asian body type and will absolutely change the game for you. The bulk versus cut debate is actually the wrong question you want to ask as a skinny fat South Asian. The right question is, how do I lose the belly fat whilst building the muscular base I never had?